Okay, now this one is going to be a little bit more disjointed, with a little bit more cutting from scene to scene. I'm going to be trying to show you how I turn my work on the wheel. Now, in front of us at the moment is a selection of the tools that I use. You'll notice I've got a wide selection of different metal kidneys. Now each one has got its own particular curve to suit the interior and exterior of any of the pieces I throw. So that's those. There's a wide selection of basic stainless steel loop tools of different sizes, again with different curves and shapes. There's an old disposable blade. Now I actually sharpen mine, but you can buy them for pence and they give you a sharper edge than you can get and you can actually make on any of the sharp edge tools. So that I use a great deal. I throw onto a wooden bat, but I turn onto the same type of bat but with a memory foam surface onto it. This means that when I put the work on, yay work, it will actually sink into the surface and bite. It doesn't slide across the surface at all. Therefore I don't have to apply lumps of clay, I don't wet it, it just sucks into the sponge. That sucking actually creates a very stable platform. It means that I can turn just by holding simply on the top of the piece. Now this is the piece that I threw 3 days ago, 2 days ago, 3 days ago. Since then I've cleaned out the interior just to tidy it up and remove any finger marks. I've sharpened up and tidied the rim, just gets rid of the little bit of slip that's left on the top edge and sharpens it rather than have a rounded rim. And just started to tidy the outside at the top. Now I've got in my kiln room, I shine a light on the inside and it's translucent at this stage down to about there, so I know from that point down it's thicker than I require. Now let's pan back a little so you can see a bit more what's going on. Okay, that should do us. Now using a pair of basic calipers. If you balance the calipers in your hands, you can actually, they're the same distance from the wheel head on both calipers. So if you hang the calipers over your work, you've got an exact judge of thickness of the inside of the piece. Now that gives me a visual representation of how thick the base of that pot is, so that when I turn it over I know where the centre in the middle of the pot is. I can't tap it, I don't know any other way of judging it, but that's, for me, that's perfect. I hope this is making sense. It's sort of making sense in my head, but whether it makes sense to anybody else is another question. Now, because I can't slide my work across the wheel head, both because it's too fragile and because of the way I work, to centre I need to actually pick up and move my work each time. Unfortunately, I also need it extremely accurate because the wall is only a couple of millimeters thick. Therefore, if I'm slightly out, I end up with one side of the pot thicker than the other. And with my work, that means one side is more translucent than the other. For me, there's a great deal of accuracy going on in all of the work that I do, from the way I throw to the way I turn. Right, now that's close enough, i.e. it's within a quarter of a mil. So personally I start by tidying up the top surface. I now know that top edge is horizontal to the bottom edge, which is the other way round. I then define how wide I want the furt, which I think should be about right. Therefore now it's just a question of removing extraneous material, preferably doing it as quickly as possible, but also doing it gently. There's something quite satisfying about turning. You actually see something appearing from underneath the tools. It's quite similar to Michelangelo's comment about the work is inside and all you have to do is remove everything that isn't part of the finished piece. Not that I am comparing myself to Michelangelo. So I know all this is just the excess clay. You have to have a fair amount left on the work whilst you're throwing, just to hold the piece into one piece. Right, and there's the mark I made earlier to show how thick the work is. So from there to the rim, I know it's already translucent and I can shine a light through that. So from there down, it's too thick. So this is the bit where I'm actually making the final piece. You have to be quite brave. You also have to keep in your head an image of the inside of the bowl. I think that should, and this is the blade that I use. Very handy, very sharp, very cheap. I always have a block, this is a diamond block, and just run the edge onto the diamond block every so often. That just re-sharpens and re-gives me an edge. Now I think that is almost there. So another hiatus whilst I go back into a dark room and check the thickness of the piece. I shall see you in a second. back again. Now I have checked the thickness of the work. I have gauged the weight of it. I can now finish off the outside profile. There's still a little bit to go. Whilst I was off air, I did recenter this. It's quite tricky to recenter after you move it, for the very simple reason the work is now a lot more fragile, so will bend and buckle. This side isn't so bad, but the bigger pieces, it's a nightmare. What am I doing? Right, let's finish off that edge. There's nothing quite as good as the human fingertip to tell how smooth or otherwise a surface is. So you have to continually fondle, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. Okay, so I'm happy with it up to about here. I like a little curve on the bottom of my, outside the bottom of my foot. So a quick trim with a curved trimming tool. A quick hang upside down to try to get what it looks like from the outside. That's good enough. Now, straight edge with a nice little curve at the top. Allows me to finish off that bottom edge of that foot. Nice little demarcation line. And now it's removing the excess clay from the inside of the foot. For me, every part of the work is equally important. Although your first image is of perhaps the outside, with my work perhaps it's the light shining through. You will pick the work up, you will look at the base, you will look inside. You will run your hand over the foot. So I find it's all equally important to make sure that it's completely finished. This may just be a rod for my own back, but then some would say throwing in porcelain is bad. Too much foot, so I'm just lowering it slightly. fur was just a little bit too prominent. Yeah, that's better, I think. I've just noticed a small that's better. Right, and I always finish it off with a little twirl in the centre. And the phrase ta-da! So that's the finished piece. Don't know how well you see that. Let's get out of the way. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. Let's weigh it. So it started out as a pound. That is now about 10 ounces. So 6 ounces has gone both from turning and from moisture loss. It's still extremely fragile, has to be handled with great caution. I'll now put my stamp on the bottom in the centre, in part of the furt, and allow it to gently dry, normally inverted onto sponge, allows it to dry fairly evenly, and then I shall do the rest of my bag of tricks, which is applying shellac and removing a little bit more clay. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.